welcome to the E'Claire Makery Podcast. I am Claire Goodale, your host, and today I have a very special guest, my friend Natalie from the Instagram and other platforms you'll know her as Nitty Natty. She is one of my good friends on Instagram. I'm so excited we're going to talk today all about how to start a video podcast. She runs one on her YouTube channel, and she's got a lot of knowledge about that we can't wait to share. So go ahead, introduce yourself, Natalie, and tell us a little bit about how you got started doing fiber arts.
Sure. Okay. So like Claire said, my name is Natalie, also known as Nitty Natty. I design knit and crochet patterns, and then I also have a weekly knit and crochet podcast here on YouTube. And I do some other videos as well, sometimes just like fun day in the life videos or tutorials to go with my patterns. So all kinds of different video content, but that is definitely not where I started out. So I'd love to kind of share that journey if that is good.
I'd love to hear that. Go ahead and start sharing your journey.
Okay. So I have been, I started knitting when I was 13 years old, and I learned to crochet when I was 15. So it's been many, many years. And of course, back then, none of the virtual, none of that was around. I feel like if you have been knitting or crocheting for that long, you kind of have like two starts to your journeys, because it's when you learned, and then it's like when you discovered like the virtual world of knitting and crochet. So for me, that was about, I don't know, maybe just like 4 years ago or so, where I felt like I was started really getting into both knitting and crochet and like Instagram and all of that stuff. So I started an Instagram, I think coming up on 3 years, 2.5 years ago. I decided I was going to start an Instagram like just for knitting. Previously, I'd gone off of social media completely, just like for personal reasons. And I was like, okay, I'm going to start this knitting thing just so I can have more places to share. But like, I don't want anyone to find me. I don't want my friends to find me. I don't want anyone to know. So it was like secret name Nitty Natty, right? I was Nitty Natty from the beginning, but I was like, this is a secret. Natalie wasn't even on there. And so I started out with that, and I was like, you know what? I think that I'm ready to start sharing. And so then I like added my name, and I was like, you know what? This is not enough for me. I think I'm going to start a blog. So I started a blog, and I was like, this is not enough for me. I think I'm going to do a video, and IGTV had just come out. And so I was like, I'll start making these little weekly 10-minute videos. So that's what I did for about 5 months, I think, before I even started YouTube, 5 or 6 months, is I would make these 10-minute vertical videos with no cuts. Like I just talked really fast for 10 minutes, tried to go through every single project that I had that week. And then I would like upload it immediately. And it was so fast then. It was a lot of fun. It was a good way to start. And then finally, I got here on YouTube in December of 2018. I did Vlogmas. And so I did, videos every single day for 25 days. It was so much fun. And then after that started my weekly podcast. So I'm now on, today was my 63rd episode. Wow. So it's crazy. I know.
That's crazy. I wish that I would have been as consistent as you with posting podcast episodes. I'm trying to do that more just because I really enjoy making them and people like watching them. But it's so hard to be consistent and keep up with that, especially like when you're busy and you're like, I don't even know what I'm working on right now.
Yeah, especially you as a designer, a lot of times there are so many things you're working on you can't share. And so it's like, well, what am I going to talk about?
Right. And I have most of the things that I've been working on this year have been secret to be like coming out later, or like I can't show the whole thing, or I'm like trying to make it a surprise. And so I'm like, what do I share about? Like, I can't really, I'm not working on anything else but these. So, but I really enjoy doing the interview, the side of the podcast stuff. So that's what I'm trying to focus on, even though I do like doing the update stuff as well. So
Well, I think that makes you unique, because I don't really know many people that do that. I mean, especially not in like, I knit and crochet, but like we all know that they're kind of almost two different worlds, right? There's different people that kind of run in those different threads. And in knitting, there's like nobody that does that. Like it is untapped, at least that I know of in a video form. So it's really great. I think that you're doing the interviews because it brings a whole new perspective on things.
Yeah, it's really fun, and it's cool to get to have different people share all of their knowledge in a podcast form. And doing it the video is cool because it feels like Instagram Live or like a hangout with two people. Like people used to say, they're like, "Oh, I feel like I'm at a girls' night and we're just talking about crochet."
Yeah, I love it. I mean, like I'm just sitting here sipping on my tea, like this is a fun afternoon. I'm spilling it on myself, but that's fine.
So if someone was wanting to start a video podcast, I know that I've gotten some people who have asked me, like, how do you do that? How do you come up with content? How do you recommend people to kind of jump into that video podcast world?
Yes. So I know it can be kind of scary because it's not just the technical side of things, but also getting like recording yourself on camera is like it can be very awkward. And so, you have to have enough confidence to do that. And honestly, it takes practice. So I think I want to start with like kind of like maybe the why of what you want to do, and then kind of go into like confidence, and then maybe even some technical stuff if like any of that comes up, because I feel like that will be helpful for people.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, so what was the why behind why you started your podcast?
So there are a million podcasts out there. Like you can just Google knitting podcasts or crochet podcasts and you're going to find tons. And the really cool thing about knitting and crochet, our community, is that there's room for everybody because everyone is unique because they're bringing their own interests and, types of patterns that they like and types of yarn they like to work with. So like there is room for everybody out there. So that I want to say first, if you want to start and you're worried about that, don't be, because there really is room for everybody. So I think you still have to come into it with like maybe your motivation. Like you said, you want to interview people and share different, strategies or skills with other makers. And then that's something, you've created your own niche for. For me, I feel like I'm just like a general podcaster. So I'm like, I just want to talk about my projects every week. I kind of like on a personal level, it's a chronicle for me. I can go back and look at things that I was working on. I even can remember what was going on in my personal life then. Like, oh, when I was working on that sweater, I was like feeling these things, and this was going on at work, and this was going on at home.
Right. The memories behind everything that you're making and all that. I do that with my stuff too all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I mean, that can be your motivation. I mean, mine was just to share because I feel so passionate about it that like the blog wasn't enough and IGTV wasn't enough. I could like 10 minutes, not long enough. My podcast, because I just talk about knitting and crochet, and that's every week. And nobody wants to listen to that in my house. So, online where everyone does appreciate it, that's the perfect place. So if you have the passion and the interest to share, I feel like that's the why enough. But if you have like another really creative element that you want to bring, like that's really cool too. So definitely just start.
Yeah, I totally agree, because I think that a lot of times that fear is what stops us from doing things. It's that fear of being on camera, that fear of, oh, what if no one watches it? What if they hate what I'm doing? What if I get a dislike? What if I do that? But if we don't take those chances, then nothing's going to happen. It was an interesting thing for me to go on to doing videos, because when I was the kid that would love to be videotaped when my parents would be taking videos, and then I would ask, can I see, which would then mean that I wouldn't see anything on the camera because I would leave and go look around at the video camera, and they'd be like, see, there's nothing there because you're not there. But I've always felt like comfortable on video, but it's different when you have an audience. It's different when you have someone who's going to watch you and can possibly critique you. And it putting yourself out there online is definitely an interesting experience.
Yeah. I'd say if you even have, Facebook or Instagram, you might have already experienced that already. And video just, it brings another element to it. But for the most part, I've had really positive experiences so far. And so as long as you're being genuine and kind, you can feel confident in ignoring people, I think, that are not being nice, because that you're already doing great things. So don't even worry about them.
Exactly. Yeah, no, there's so many, like, once you find your following, once you find your people who really like watching you being like a part of your world, and as long as you show who you are, they're going to appreciate that, and they're gonna come to your channel, come to your video, and they'll enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So when it comes to content, what are some different things that you've seen in like the fiber arts podcast world, or like what do you do when it comes to creating content for a video podcast? Because like I always have like the interviews, and I have a topic that we do every week to kind of teach people things. But what do you do when it comes to doing that content creation for a podcast?
Yeah. So when I first started, especially, I did take a lot of time to prepare like basically show notes, like what I would be talking about. So I kind of would break it down into sections, like this is going to be my introduction every week. I'm going to start with these words, like introducing myself and everything. And then I'm going to move into talking about anything that I've finished, and then all of my whips. And then after that, I kind of would talk about more like life in general. And that I didn't do as much at first because I didn't have an audience yet. They didn't, sometimes people have to get to know your, what you're there for, the yarn, the knitting, and the crochet. And then as you start to get more of like those regulars coming back, they want to know more about you. People love feeling like they have a friend on the internet. And I think it is like a friendship on the internet, even if you're not talking. Yeah.
Yeah. You feel like you feel like you know that person. So then when something happens to them, you're like, yay.
Yes, you're rooting for them. Like you expect them to be there. Like my podcasts from the beginning have gone up on Thursdays at 9 a.m. And so if I don't post on Thursdays at 9 a.m., like somebody's going to reach out and be like, did I miss it? Did something happen? Like I didn't see an announcement. Like they know that I'm there, and then they like, and your audience will show up for you there when you're consistent. Oh yeah. I was just trying to think. I was like, at some point I was a few episodes, maybe 10 episodes in, and I started adding in like a question and answer element to my podcast. I might've been like 20 episodes in. Like I said, once you get to know people a little bit better, then people might start asking you questions about your life or about knitting and crochet. And so I started making a space for that, where in my podcast, like that was one of my sections, questions and answers. And I would answer questions. And that always gives new content, because you can't always just come up with original stuff. Like your audience will tell you what they want to hear about. And I feel like that's always so helpful, because then you're giving content that people are going to like.
Oh yeah, it's so hard to create content, especially if like if you're doing it around whips and you are stuck on the same project for a long time, and you're like, sorry guys, I know you don't want to hear about this again, but I'm still making it.
Oh yeah, I'll have like the reoccurring one because with knitting, sometimes it takes so long. Like I might be working on something for 2 months, and I'm working on it, but like I'm like, okay, here, if it's a plain old sweater, I'm like, I've done another 2 inches of plain knitting. Here you go. Like, I mean, I guess people are like, well, that happens to me too, so maybe they can relate to it. But I get what you mean. Having a podcast does motivate me to like move through my projects and stick to them, and not like just cast on a bunch of things. Although I'm not immune.
Oh yeah, I have way too many projects all the time and have way too many ideas all the time. I like being a designer, but it is also overwhelming with creativity because you can't ever turn that off. and it keeps you awake at night because you're like, I could make this. Oh, I could do this. Oh, that would be really cool, but I just want to go to sleep.
You need somebody that you can like be like, all right, this is my idea. Like, go. Okay, this person go. Okay, this person go. Everyone come back to me when you're ready for the next instruction. That's what I wish I had sometimes.
Oh, I totally wish that too. I wish that I could be like, I had a team of people that could make the designs that I create, and I could just be like, here's my idea, create this. Here's my idea, create this. Or like I can make, because I do tapestry crochet, a lot of the stuff I do I can generate the pattern off of a chart. So someone could just make it, but it's the making the sample that it takes the most time. And
right.
I can't.
You've honed your skills to be able to do it like mostly all digital, and then you can just go, which is really cool. That's amazing.
I wish that there were other softwares out there so that you could be like, I know that they have it for knitting where it's like, oh yeah, let's generate a sweater pattern by we just pick this, this, and this. But I wish there was that for crochet too. That would be cool.
That would be cool. Do you know anything about designing programs or software?
Don't. I wish I did. I wish I did.
That's another idea you can give to somebody and be like, this is my idea. Like, put Claire on it, but go make it.
I'll give you credit, but it's my idea. Exactly. I'm trying to remember what were the other points that you were going to make about the podcast. It was your why, and then
the very, very first thing that I ever did was I recorded and this was when I was doing IGTV, it was a 10-minute limit. I recorded an entire 10-minute podcast, which is not very long, just for me. And then I sat down and I watched it, and I was checking for like technical things like audio and was there enough lighting, like all of those things that you don't know until you watch it back. But also like, how did I sound? How did I come across? Because when you're recording video, like as much as it does feel like a friendly conversation, like you do have to like get a little more peppy or you're going to come across like, Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, everyone has a phone voice. I'm a teacher, so I have a teacher voice. I have a voice when I talk to my dog. All of those are still me, but they're like putting on, ready, prepared to speak and be heard. And so, I needed to do that and I needed to watch myself do it. And then I started doing the regular podcast. I posted the first one. I was so nervous and it probably got like, I don't even know, 15 views or whatever, but it was fine because I needed to grow slowly. I needed to learn along the way. And so I watch every single one of my own podcasts, like when I'm editing them. And so through that, I really try to learn from it. Like, I really, after I've been a few episodes in, I'm like, my lighting is not great. And now that I'm doing this regularly, I think it's time for me to buy some lights. And then like, my audio isn't always the best. Like, I think it's time for me to buy a microphone. That's my most recent purchase. And so, just learning from yourself and watching it back, it helps you to feel more comfortable and also to like get better. I don't think anyone is just born with the skill to like talk and look at the camera. That was the hardest thing to learn, right? Yeah. Looking, like I can look at you and I don't look like I'm looking at people, but if I look at my camera, I look like I'm looking at the person, but that's really awkward. It kind of makes you go cross-eyed a little bit.
And you're like, I feel like I always try to like imagine that that's a person, which is really hard to do. But then I know that sometimes in videos when they do look at the camera, it's like, wait, they're looking at me. They're looking at my soul. What's going on here? But it definitely I think that looking at the camera makes it more personable because people are able to feel like they are being seen and that you're able to connect with them a lot better by looking through the camera.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a skill to learn. It's not something that you should just already have. So practice it. It's super weird, and that's okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I know the first time that I recorded a podcast episode where it was just me, because when I started my podcast, my first episode was one where it was just me, and then the next ones were all the interviews, and then I've done a couple ones with just me in between then, and it's one of those weird things of where you're like, okay, I have to look at the camera, but then also having that confidence too, I have to talk about, like, just talk to myself basically, but imagine that it's someone else that I'm talking to. And then I never thought that I could talk for 45 minutes straight about knitting and crochet, but I learned, oh, I totally can.
Yep. No problems with that.
Yeah. What are some of the other ways that you have to learn how to build that confidence in order to create a video podcast?
I think just practicing maybe and putting yourself out there, like putting that first episode up, even if it's not good, is going to help build your confidence. You can also, I did a lot of like watching other people's podcasts when I was planning out how I wanted to do mine. And I would, anyone who was really big, I would go back and watch their first episode. Maybe they have 100 now, but when you go back and watch their first, like everyone starts in the same place. Like they don't talk as fast. I would say like their rate is different. Like they're trying to think about what they want to say, and everyone's awkward at first. And if you can go back and see that, you're like, oh, everyone starts the same, so it'll be fine.
Oh yeah, especially when it comes to like the video, the lighting, the audio aspect. I think that that's something that intimidated me at first, but like everyone starts out with poor lighting and audio. And like I look at some of my first videos that I thought were good, and I'm like, oh my goodness, what was I thinking?
But never get rid of those, because it's so good. Like I guess that's another thing is for your own growth, like I think it's so important to go back and look at what you've done, because sometimes you might not realize that you have grown so much if you don't go back and look.
Right, exactly. And you never see like, well, how have I improved? How have I grown as a person? And like I can look at the stuff, I'm like, wow, I gained a lot of confidence by doing this. Never realized that that was something that I needed to learn from making a video, but I think that now I have a little spiel that I do whenever someone asks me for an introduction. I'm like, oh, I know exactly what I'm going to say because I do this all the time. Or, oh, I know how to respond to this. Or, oh, yeah, I could totally do that thing because I do videos. I'll totally be okay. And I still get nervous all the time, but it definitely helps me build a lot more confidence to go out and do things and like work with brands to be like, yeah, I do these video things. I can do this.
Yeah, that is huge. Absolutely. And I had somebody give me a great tip about like your voice, because when you're nervous, your voice sounds different, right? Like it's strained. And so I was having that issue, and I wasn't nervous actually, because this was like only like a month ago or so. At least I don't think that I was nervous. But one of my friends, she's like a vocalist, and she said, your voice has to be warmed up just like your body before you do anything. If you're talking for 45 minutes, like you're going to strain your voice. And so she gave me a tip to like, before you start, like hum, talk, obviously. I can't remember what else she said. I remember humming. And so literally before I start any video, I'm like, I'm not going to do it loud, but like, I'm like, like humming, and I'm like stretching my mouth and stuff. And I'm like, all right, let's go. And then I sit down and do my video, because you have to bring that energy, if that's natural for you, which it is like for me to have high energy. And so you have to be like, all right, here we go. I'm ready. Like you're on stage almost.
Right, exactly. And it's like, and it's interesting with video because sometimes it feels like it's a performance of one, but the reach that you can have, and it's interesting watching, like for me, posting videos and then seeing that people have watched them, and it's like, oh, I didn't do this just for me. I did this for some other people too, to connect with other people and to interact with other people, even though it doesn't feel like it when you're recording, but you are actually interacting with your audience through recording videos.
Yeah. And I always try to imagine, especially when you start out, because if, 3 people watch your video, like that can feel like not a lot. But then if you imagine them as actual people, like sitting at a table, you're like, 3 people that I don't know came and watched me talk about knitting and crochet. Like that's insane. That's amazing. And then it's like, oh, 10 people, like I couldn't even fit 10 people at my kitchen table. Like that's so cool. So you kind of have to think of it like that. Because anything, if you put online and people are watching it, like that's really awesome.
I really like that visual idea of like, oh yeah, if you have like, oh, all these people are listening to me. And it's crazy if you get like a video that has, which I only have a couple of my tutorial videos that have like over 1,000 views, but it's like, oh wow, I'm still reaching this huge audience. And like your podcast episodes, because you've been doing it for so long, like they get thousands of views because you've got that audience. But it's like, oh wow, that's speaking to like an entire like stadium or like a concert hall or something, which is really crazy to think about, that you can reach that many people with what you're just saying in a video.
Yeah, that is crazy. And it's a slow build, but it's awesome. Consistency, that really does bring people. That's awesome.
What are some of the, like you said, another thing you wanted to, like the next point was doing some of the tech stuff. What are some of the tech things that are, because I know that's something that people get nervous about, or like they don't want to make that investment right away because they don't know if they like it very much. What are some of the like beginning tech that you need to start a video podcast?
Yes. So number one must have is you have to be able to record yourself. So I would say when I started out, and still to this day, I don't have a camera. I just use my phone. I don't use a computer. I edit on my phone. I do absolutely everything on my phone still. So all you don't even need a tripod to start. Just if you have a phone or like an iPad, because I think that they have really good cameras as well. Just prop that up with some books on a bookshelf and like record your first episode. It's going to be absolutely fine. Like the microphones are good. The camera is good. The one thing, this is my favorite tip to give people. If you're recording on your phone, you can actually, the standard setting is not the highest video quality. So if you go into your settings, you can change it to record at 1080 at 60 FPS, I think. Ooh. It's 1080 at 60.
I didn't know that you needed to increase that. That makes a lot of sense. I'm like, oh, pull up my phone right here. Yeah. Go look at that.
So my husband, he does video for his work, and his coworker, he works from home. His coworker was over. I mean, this was over a year ago. And I was like, my videos are like I was doing tutorials too. I'm like, I just wish they looked better. And he's like, let me see your phone. And he changed it. And since then, all my videos have been so much better. So that really does, that helps a lot.
I'm definitely going to use that tip for myself.
Yeah, you should. I mean, you should do it even if you're not making podcasts, because your videos are going to be higher quality. They'll look better.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. Because if you have, especially with the new iPhones, the cameras are super good on those. Like a lot of my recent tutorials, I've used just my phone for recording those tutorials. Like I do have a Canon camera that I use for some stuff. But like right now, I'm just using my computer's webcam to record this. And I do have another webcam. Sorry, I don't know what's going on with my voice. I should have warmed it up. But I have a webcam that I use, but I don't necessarily like the video quality that it produces. Even though it says it's this and this, it does colors very weird. So I've just kind of switched back to using my phone or my computer in order to do the recordings for those.
Yeah, it's always trial and error just to see what's going to work well. And I'm still trying new things all the time. Like I just learned, I have the newest iPhone, which I felt was a good investment because I do multiple videos every week.
Right.
And I just learned that this is so silly, but the camera on the back, it has 3 lenses, and like the one on the front only has like, I can't even really see them, but there's like 2 little things. Well, the camera on the back, the one that's not selfie facing, is way better. It does like the cool focus thing. And I'm like, how did I not know this? I've had this phone for like 7 months and I just learned it the other day.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things too, when you're recording on your phone, like even I only have the one with the 2 cameras, but it's one of those things of I guess I feel like when I do recordings, looking at myself feels like I'm talking to someone else. And so it feels more safe to use the camera that faces you all the time. But they usually put the better ones on the back of the phone.
Yeah. That's my new skill, maybe, is to figure out how I can turn my phone around, but still be able to like see. Cause I don't want to be like record this whole episode and I'm like way over here off camera, or like when I'm holding up projects to the camera, they're like not even on the screen. So that's probably my new thing that I need to learn next. But I mean, it's been over a year of recording podcasts, no problem, just like I am now. So it still works.
And I think I was going to ask, like, what are the lighting things that you use? Because I know that that's something that it's crazy how just adding a couple lights can really change something.
Yes. So the first thing was the phone. Then I got a tripod, which I'm looking at it right now. It's the same one I got in the beginning on Amazon. I think it was $15, and I still have the same one. I beat this thing up. I carry it around. I have another YouTube channel where I do like cleaning videos, and so I move it around constantly, like up, down, shrinking it and stuff. And it's been so beat up, and it still works. So tripod, not an expensive investment, and it helps a ton. But then the third thing, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I use a flexible tripod. I have one of those ones that the legs can bend, and then it has the like phone holder, and then you can make it go different angles. You can switch the phone holder to adjust depending on like how, like if I've got, my phone's this way, then I can have the tripod hold it like this. Or if I'm doing this, then it'll hold it on the side like that. So I really like the flexible tripod because if you're going out anywhere, you can like wrap it around. If you're like on a bridge taking a photo, you can wrap it around the handle on the bridge. Or if you're on stairs and you're taking a photo, like the flexible tripod is a great, very cheap investment. Like it's crazy how cheap some tripods are that you can use. Like you said, $15, and I think the one that I have was like 20 or less. So there's a lot of, and Amazon is a great place for finding that stuff.
Yeah, I think all of my equipment I got off of Amazon. So yeah, it's definitely in waves, because you're right. You don't want to invest in like go get the $1,200 camera and all the light kit and stuff until you know if you like it. And so yeah, that's why I start with the phone and the tripod and then go from there. But the reason I got my lighting kit is because I used to record on Wednesdays after work. So in the winter time, the sun sets at like 4:45. I mean, like 5 p.m. or so. And I didn't get off of work till 4, and it took me 30 minutes to drive home. So I would be like rushing home and like literally not even go upstairs into our main living space, because my yarn room and everything is on the first floor of our house. I would just like come in, throw my bag down, and like sit and start recording so that the window would provide my light. And then I would just watch in the camera view as like the sun would just come down and it would get dark. And I was like, this is torture. And I would yell at my husband, because I'd be like, I need to record. And I'd be like rushing in. It was not great for anybody. So I got this lighting kit. It's 2 umbrella lights. So if you think of like going to the photography studio where they have those box lights, or like the umbrella ones where it gives you soft light. So it's got 2 of those, and they're adjustable. And then it had like an extra light, which I've never ever used. And it was $50 or $60. So it was definitely more of an investment, but not crazy. And I've been using them for over a year. They're awesome. And now I can record anytime. of the day.
Oh yeah, like I have the box lights, I think they're around $50 on Amazon. And it's two of them, and they're on like stands. And I've used the same light bulbs in them for the last year or so. So like they last a really long time, and then I can just move these around my house when I need them. And I'm pretty sure that these ones, they're like designed that you can take them anywhere, but of course I'm not going to carry around huge lights everywhere. But like the room that I'm in right now, everywhere else but right here, it's like pretty much dark. Like my apartment gets virtually no sunlight, which is a bummer. So we're moving. But I'm by a window, but it barely provides any light. So in order for me to be able to record, I always have to have my studio lights. Otherwise, the light that I get from windows is never enough. So I had to learn very quickly, like, oh, okay, just having a lamp, like the one behind me, that doesn't provide very much light. And the light it does provide is too yellow. So it doesn't look right. But the lighting stuff is a huge payoff from where I was before. Look at my first videos, no good lighting. Then they just keep getting better as I learn more tricks with the lighting.
Yes. And I wish I could be like right now I'm in the corner of my bedroom. This is my like temporary space because we have my mother-in-law living with us right now, but I wish I could be in my yarn room because that's where I get like the best like all around light, and I still have my lighting kit, and then I have all my yarn on my little IKEA shelf behind me, and it's like, yeah, plain, nice background, or like you have your shelf of all your yarn in the background. That helps a lot. And it makes it recognizable.
We had to do this because in my craft room, we get virtually no internet in that room. I don't know why, but like the back half of our apartment get like no internet, so I had to have my husband move this out. He was like, oh, I'll move it out so you don't have to be in here, so then I can get good internet out in this front room. So now we've got a little yarn room interview section that we use. So I created a little space that we can use and get a little bit better lighting and a little bit better internet.
I love that. That is awesome.
But go ahead and what you were saying about the background stuff.
I think that having a background that is either simple or like related to what you're talking about is a really good way to like have consistency, and also like people will recognize your videos because they like, well, obviously your face, if that's like the picture you put up, but then like, oh, that's like, I know that's Claire's, like I know your pegboard. Like whenever I see that, like I'm like, oh, that's Claire's. Like I know that's E'Claire Makery. Or like when people see my white IKEA shelf, not that I'm the only one who has it, but just like because of the way I have my yarn, people are like, oh, I know that's Natalie's. Like that's her yarn shelf or whatever. So it just helps. Nothing elaborate. Like if you don't already have it there. But like when I came upstairs, because I've been up here for a couple months, I'm like, okay, I'll bring my little sheep and my little twinkle lights and stuff like that. I don't know if you can see the sheep at all, but
I can see the sheep. Yeah.
Okay.
Don't know if everyone else will be able to see them, but
I know
I can see the sheep.
They're cute.
They are cute. I was even gonna say like, yeah, you've got sheep in the background. They relate to yarn. Oh, they're so cute.
This one is shearable.
What?
You can shear it.
No way.
I know. One of my friends gave me that. So cute.
That's adorable.
I like that one.
Oh, I love the bright colors on that.
Me too. I love color.
Yeah, me too. People always are like, how can you work with colors? I'm like, they're so fun. You can just put them together and you're like, I hope it works.
Exactly.
So what are some other tips that you have for starting a podcast, like we talked about? Kind of having your why behind it, a little bit about content, getting confidence, and then like some technical stuff that you need. What are some other things that you kind of recommend people to have an idea of when they start?
I would just kind of say don't try to do it all at once. Like you can't go in as a professional. Like not that I feel like a professional, but like you can't just go in like at level 100. Like you're supposed to be going through the different levels. That's how I feel about everything new that I'm starting. Like I have to start at this level because I need to be able to manage this level. And then now I can add a little more. Like even with the equipment we were talking about, like I'm going to start with my phone, and then eventually like I'm going to get my lighting kit and all that. And so for me, my next step, or maybe I'll try to figure out the camera thing, space to grow. So don't feel like you have to start out at level 100. Like start at level 1 and you're just going to build from there. If you don't do that, I feel like if you expect to be at a higher level right away, it's going to feel overwhelming and you're going to feel like you're failing, and you're not. You're growing. So I would just say take it one week or however many times you're going to record your podcast at a time.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, because I think that's something that I really struggle with, is that idea of, oh, I need to already be at this level when I'm just starting. Like all of those people that I admire, or like YouTubers I watch, or different knitting and crochet people on Instagram, like I'm like, I should already be at that point, even though they've been doing it for like 6+ years. So like they have had a lot of time to hone their craft, get their photos how they want them, like get their designs how they want, and having to learn like, okay, it's okay if it takes time. Like, but I think there's that thought of, oh, but I want to go viral. Like, I want to get that instant success, because there are some people where that's happened for them, but that's not the common thing, and that's okay. Like, you don't have to put that pressure on yourself to go viral instantly. Like, I mean, you never know what you put out if it's gonna like go viral, but most likely don't expect that right away.
Yeah, I think consistent growth is so much better, because like if you go viral, I think for the rest of your, and not that it can't like be okay for people, but like if you start out and like your second video for some reason goes off, like I think you're going to spend the rest of the time being disappointed, because you might not be able to hit that anymore. Whereas if you're slowly growing and then you have like a video that does take off, and then you come back down with your other videos where you were, you already have the confidence to say, I already have an audience. Like it was really great that video did that, but like I know my space, and I know that I'm putting out good stuff. So I think that's probably not going to happen for most of us, and that's 100% okay.
Yeah, totally. And that doesn't mean that we won't have success later. That doesn't mean that we won't grow our channels to be huge. It just might take a little bit longer, and that's totally fine.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Right now, like it's okay. I don't need to be an instant success. I'm okay.
And that's where you can look back and say like, maybe like I haven't had the energy to put into YouTube because I'm doing pattern design, and look at how much I've done. Like it's amazing. Or like I haven't, vice versa. Like I've been doing a lot of YouTube lately and not as much pattern design. And so obviously my pattern design isn't growing, but my YouTube is. And so it's like, we all have seasons and we all have places where we can put our energy. And especially with being creative, like you need to be disciplined, you need to be business minded, but sometimes you do have to follow your passion a little bit. And it's okay. And it might develop into something you never thought you'd be doing, and it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, and going off of that, just like don't force yourself to do content you don't want to make, because especially with video, because people will be able to tell that you don't enjoy what you're making, because I mean, unless you're a professional actor, like it's really hard to hide how you're feeling. Like I know there have been days where I'm like, okay, I'm not recording right now because I'm just not in a good mood. I've got something going on personally, and I don't want to show. No one wants to see how I feel right now. And just like, it. Oh, sorry, I just lost my totally just lost my train of thought. But just like if you force yourself to make content all the time, you're gonna burn yourself out, and also it will reflect in your videos. And
absolutely.
Especially when doing a podcast, a video podcast where you're showing your face.
Yeah. Yeah, I've definitely had times like that where it's like, I have my recording day every week, but if something happens and I'm not feeling great, like I choose to do it the next day. And it's not being fake. It's just
Right.
choosing when you're at a high energy level. Like,
Yeah, yeah, it's totally fine to put something off for another day. Or I think one thing that I really struggle with is feeling that pressure to constantly be producing content, and then that ends up reflecting in the content that I create because it's not as high of quality. Like I've been trying to work on a video for corner to corner color change tutorial. And because that's something that I get asked a lot, so I'm like, okay, I'll try to make this video. And the other day I was recording it and I was just like, I don't even know where I'm going with this video. I don't even know what I'm saying. Like, I watched it back and I was like, no one could learn from what I just taught. And I was like, because I just came up with like a quick pattern they could use to learn. And so then I had to realize, like, okay, I need to scrap all of that work that I just did. Like, it's not quality. I'm trying to put it out tomorrow, but I should just wait a couple more days so that I can make something that will actually be beneficial to people and make a pattern that, oh yeah, this could be a great learning one and people would actually want to make this and would draw them to this skill. And it's so hard when you feel like you always have to create content, but it's okay to put it off for just a day or two until you feel like you can make something that is quality.
oh yeah, absolutely. I've done the same thing especially with tutorials, because I feel like unless you've taught it before, the first time you teach it is not the best time, right? So you're recording it and you're like saying these things, and then when you watch it back, I already know how I would do it next time better. I wish I could just record it next time. So sometimes I'll sit there and I'll go like, all right, I'll talk. I'll be like, okay, we're going to knit one and then purl one. And then I'm like, I'll go through the whole thing and then I'm like, okay, now it's time to record. And then I'll do it. I'll do it like 2 times pretty much.
That's great. So you're like practicing your speech pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you don't
Yep.
do it regularly, it does not feel natural to um, explain how you do crochet or explain how you do knitting. That's something that I had to learn, is going from like, okay, I'm going to teach people, and this is like, what are all the little things that I need to include within this? Like, if I go back and look at some of my tutorials when I first started doing tutorial videos, I'm like, I want to just go back and re-record all of my beginner crochet videos that I made, because I'm like, I don't know how anyone could learn from this. The quality's terrible. I was recording it off of a poster board was my background. I put it up against a window because that was the best light I had. Turned the brightness on my camera all the way up, and it just was horrible. But I'm like, I learned from that video. Like, I don't want to do this. I need to explain myself better with these different things and keep growing from doing those different videos.
Yeah, people who make tutorials are like amazing because it is so much work. It's crazy.
Oh yeah, I'm constantly learning, like, how can I explain this better? And it's crazy how you learn, like, whether you're filming a podcast or you're filming a tutorial video, you learn what are the things that people are wondering about. Because like if you're talking, this is something that I have to keep learning how to do, is because I've been crocheting for so long, I know all those different things and I know how to do, I can figure something out. If it's not explained, I can usually figure out how to do it. But for a lot of other people, like if they're first starting out, then they'll be like, I have no idea, what does this even mean? But for me, when I wrote the pattern or I made the video, I didn't think it needed an explanation. But then learning, oh, what does my audience want in order to serve them better? Because
Yeah.
if I were to just go off of my knowledge, then I could do it in like 3 minutes and have a video done. But that's not my audience I'm trying to reach and teach.
Yep. You're creating for other people. So you have to think like them sometimes.
Yes, totally. We are almost out of time for this episode. So what are some last things that you want to close the interview with, whether it's tips about making a video podcast or anything else relating to that.
Sure. I have one more tip. So this is perfect. I would just say when you decide to do your podcast or your tutorials, whatever you're going to do, just be consistent with them, and not just consistent with your audience. Like if you tell them you're going to have a podcast every Thursday, like do it. Don't say anything you're not going to do, but be consistent to yourself. Like I read a book one time where it said, don't break promises to yourself. Like we're the person that we break promises to the most. And when you start saying like, I'm going to do this, maybe you need to tell somebody else, because then it's harder to break it.
Was that
then
girl
you follow through? Huh?
Was that girl wash your face?
Yeah, it was probably Rachel Hollis. But she is always in my head with that quote. I love that quote. Like follow through. And it's so true. Once you do it, it's like a snowball. It's like, I know I'm going to do it because I said I'm going to do it. And if it's not as easy as I thought, I'm going to figure it out. Right. And that just takes practice and, consistency with like a video every week is one of those promises that I made to myself. And that doesn't mean like if I go on vacation, I'm like, I still have to figure it out or, whatever. But it just means that like I'm committed to like every Tuesday I sit down and I record my podcast. Every Wednesday I edit it. Every Thursday I put it up like clockwork. And now it's easy. Now it's second nature. So yeah, just consistency, and your audience is going to show up for that. It'll grow. It really will.
I think that's a great tip to close this episode off with, because I think that's something that I struggle with, is breaking promises I've made to myself, especially like when it comes to rest. I have a really hard time with that, and so I don't give myself that availability to do that. And I think with video, it's really because I think there's all that nervousness that can be behind making a video. And so it's easy to break that promise to yourself of that commitment that you've made to do it, because there's that fear. But it's crazy how once you start doing it consistently and don't break that promise to yourself, like you said, it just becomes second nature and it totally works. And it will soon become a part of your routine.
Absolutely. Then you can add more stuff on top of that.
Right, exactly. Exactly. Once you master one thing, you can keep going to the next one and keep growing and growing and growing. It's really cool.
Yep, exactly.
Well, thank you so much for joining me on this podcast episode today, Natalie. It was super fun talking about to a fellow video podcaster, because we get it. Thanks for sharing all of your tips, and everyone be sure to check out her video podcast. Comes out every Thursday. It's super fun, and check out her Instagram as well. I'll have all the links for her info, as well as the equipment that we use in case you want to start a video podcast. I'll have that in the description so that you can see what we use and get it for yourself if you want to start your own podcast.
Awesome. Thank you, Claire. This was so fun.
Thank you so much. And I guess I will talk to you later then. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to like it below if you enjoyed watching it, and hit the subscribe button if you never want to miss out a video from me, and also check out my other videos and tutorials on my channel. See you next time.